Hello, I'm Thomas Haire, Chief Content Officer of the Performance Driven Marketing Institute, a not-for-profit trade association that serves companies in the performance and direct-to-consumer marketing world. Welcome to the first event in our 2024 Spring Seminar Series, today created by the PDMI's Workshop Council entitled Longforms Fit in Today's Performance Campaigns. We welcome all of you to today's event, PDMI members and non-members alike. If you're not a PDMI member but are attending today, we'd love to have you consider joining the association. There's no better way to support the mission of the PDMI than joining and sharing your voice in the direction of the industry. In the handouts tab of your control panel, you'll find our PDMI membership brochure. I urge you to download it, flip through it, and contact any of our team members should you desire any more information. One more housekeeping note. The group will be addressing any questions from the audience at the end of today's session, but you don't have to wait to ask them. Utilize the questions tab on your control panel to type and send your question in. We'll be collecting them, and we'll try to get to as many as we can in the final moments of the webinar. Now, as performance marketers are flooded with an array of new media options from CTV to mobile and from social to fast channels and beyond, creative links and calls to action have shifted. However, there's still a place for long-form direct-to-consumer advertising in many campaigns. I'm excited to be here with this group of longtime leaders in the market, discussing how long-form DRTV is fitting into the modern performance marketer's arsenal. Right now, folks, we are currently missing Michelle Green of 212 Direct. She is trying to get logged in and having a little bit of a struggle. So we hope that Michelle and her 25 years of experience in the direct consumer and performance marketing space will join us shortly. We do have, however, a pair of legends, if I can say, in the industry. Also, both with more than 25 years of experience. Mike Hallowell, who, again, another quarter-century veteran of the D2C world, returned to American Telecast Products, the marketer of Total Gym, in 2023. He had began his career there prior to spending nearly 2 decades at Raymond, the growth agency, and is now ATC's Vice President of Performance Marketing. And of course, Bill Raymond, Executive Vice President and Managing Partner in Cannella Media DTC's LA office. His understanding of the D2C space is comprehensive, and he too boasts more than 25 years in the space. Was an agency founder before he merged his business with Cannella 2 decades ago. Guys, welcome. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, Tom.
Thanks for having us, Tom.
Absolutely, and we hope that Michelle again will join us soon. You know, I'm gonna go to you, Bill, first on this one. We've heard about the supposed death of long-form DRTV for years now. I mean, I think in the conversation we had yesterday, one could actually even say decades, perhaps. Tell me in your own words why and how long-form is still alive and effective as a performance marketing mechanism.
Yeah, you know, we've heard this for the last 10 years. I mean, I remember when, even longer than that, I remember when they were starting to look at unbundling cable, right? And they were saying that it was dead then, and it's still here. You know, long form is a way to tell a story and really get those consumers engaged. You know, it is a format where, you know, the marketers can get immediate response and you can read it. And in today's age, you know, it really complements everything else that all of the marketers are doing to really bring in overall sales. And it doesn't just drive the sales from it to a 800 number, but also to the web, to a QR code, to Amazon, to retail, to brick and mortar. It really is, you know, lower funnel, deterministic. And while direct to consumer, you know, long form may not be cool, it works.
Oh. Yeah, Mike, what about you?
Yeah, you know, I think you said a lot of it there, Bill, but I mean, I remember back in 2008 and, you know, just looking at my career and figuring out, you know, where I wanted to go and, you know, had concerns about the long form space and thinking about, you know, maybe I need to make not necessarily a career change, but a change within the agency, because not sure where it was going to all go. And, you know, I think there's been ebbs and flows that we've seen, you know, since, you know, in the last 10 years, you know, we've seen a lot of these bigger network groups come together and merge, which has, you know, eliminated some of the more high profile. There used to be a lot more high profile time out there, than there is today. But, as in terms of availability, we're still seeing that there's a ton of availability. We've seen the emergence of the DigiNets and that space and a lot of availability there. So, I think it's really interesting where we saw a little bit of an influx of, networks taking time back to spot, kind of pre-COVID. Since then, things have really stabilized. And for everything that you said, Bill, about the storytelling and, is it the space for everyone? Not necessarily, but, if you have a great story to tell, it is definitely the place to do it. And I think the other thing that's important to know about long form is if you think about it from a cost perspective, right? If you take the minute by minute cost of a long form, it still is much more advantageous than a lot of your spot advertising. So point of entry, creating the spots can tend to be more expensive because you're creating longer content. You need more content to put together a 28-30. But once you're in the space, it is advantageous from a pricing standpoint. So I think for all those reasons is why long form is still here today, and we all hope and think it'll be here for a long time to come.
Yeah, and I mean, I'll add that I think, as media continues to change, and while it may change where we are watching a long form, it's still going to be there. I mean, you see it now. Like if you look at YouTube, there's longer form content that came from a long form infomercial. It's just people are viewing it in a different space.
Great. Thanks, Bill. Hey, Michelle, I believe we have you at least via audio. Is that correct?
Yep, I'm here. So
Great.
sorry about that.
Wonderful. So sorry that we had those issues, but it's great to have you here at least via voice. And I'm going to let you have your crack.
Oh, there you are, Michelle.
And my face is
there
here.
She is. There she
Sorry,
is.
guys.
Wonderful. Great to see you.
Great
Wonderful.
to see you. Good morning.
Good. Yeah, good morning to you. Good afternoon everywhere else. And hey, we just got to the end of the first question, so you're just in time to share your 2 cents, about the idea of, why you think after all this talk about the death of long form for years, how it's still alive as an effective performance marketing mechanism. And don't worry about repeating what the guys just said, because it's just like we're pounding in everyone's heads, right?
I'm not, because I didn't hear it. So
there you go.
I mean, I actually think it's more of a source of opportunity right now, even with the rise of connected and over the top. More people are working from home. More people are shopping from home, and in long form specifically, the rates are lower than they've been in years. So, I mean, those two things together, and for longer format, the inventory is still there. So the opportunity to test for a new offer with low risk and transparency is really, really strong. And you've got the visibility, transparency, low risk, and the cost is much lower. So I think we're still in a really, really good, strong place.
That's great. Thanks, Michelle. Up next, I'm going to go to you, Mike, first with this one.
Sure.
When you're a brand or an advertiser and you're looking at long form opportunities when you're launching a new campaign right now, what do you say are the top 2 things that you got to understand about the space?
Yeah, I think this is a great question, and I'm sure we'll have some different answers to this. But when I think about this, the first thing is the long form space is still in high demand, and I don't want people to think of that as a negative. I actually think it's a real positive for advertisers, because as long as there's demand out there, the networks are going to continue to sell the time. I think we've seen it recently, and I touched on it a little bit in that first question. Is we're not seeing time being taken back like we were years ago. From the long form space into the spot market. So I know I get the questions, for many years. The thought is that there's less advertisers in the space means there's less demand, and that's not the case. I mean, demand is still very high. And again, I think it's a good thing, because that means the space is strong and people still want to be in the space, which is great for all of us, whether we're on the client side or on the client side or the agency side of the business. And then I think the second thing that is really important for everybody to know is, brands like Total Gym and others that are out there have been in this space for a long time, and agencies control a lot of the inventory. So if I were to give someone good advice that's trying to get into this space right now, is find the right partner, a partner that has proven success on the agency side, because you know, as we know, there's agencies out there that specialize in this, and I would not recommend someone trying to get in this space and trying to do it all yourself, because that could be very challenging.
Michelle, what about you?
I mean, I just think I agree with Mike on finding the right partner. You know, there are many of us still out there that have been doing this for decades, so that is important with all our relationships, and then just going through all the evolving changes. That is definitely key for anybody newly entering the space. And I just think that it's just a good way to test. I mean, you've got the length in your favor, and then evolving consumer preferences towards authenticity and transparency that long form creates. So the trust is there.
Makes sense. Bill, you want to round it out?
Yeah, I mean, I'll just add that you know, to make things work, you just really have to have a proven business model, and you need to be connecting all of the different aspects of the campaign, from the creative side to the phone to the web to Amazon. You just have to make sure that as a marketer, they are retargeting and doing all the things that they need to keep the consumers engaged and getting whatever KPI they are going after.
That makes sense. Go to our agency experts here. Michelle, I'm going to go to you first, and I'm going to ask, you know, there's obviously still a great opportunity for small to medium-sized brands focused on using D2C methods. You know, how can they test and understand how long form can still bring strong return on ad spend and brand growth?
I mean, I think, you know, obviously you can get a lot of data from that, and you can do especially now, a relatively small, low risk test and still know what you're going to have. I mean, you don't have the big need for a ton of frequency. And so the accessibility and the ability to buy it very efficiently is stronger than ever. So for the smaller companies and the medium-sized ones that are looking to get into this space, I think it's a pretty safe, easy way, you know. So, and I mean, you're gonna know in a small long form test, small to mid-sized long form test, if you've got legs and what you've got. And then
Bill,
the
your thoughts?
loyalty that exists in linear. I mean, it's just so different than connected and streaming. So, yeah, I think it's still really, really strong, and you're able to capture them and keep them for more than a minute or two versus streaming and over the top.
Great. Bill, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I agree that with long form you can do a small test and you know immediately if it works or not. Also, I think that if it does work, retail, especially for a brand, can really drive. I mean, infomercial and long form for brand can really drive sales. And I'll say that if a new brand wants to get into this, instead of doing maybe a full 28-30, they can test and do, you know, a 5 minute and then loop that just to see if it has legs. And if it does, then they can go and put the dollars to a entire long form.
Makes sense. Makes sense. Mike, I'm going to go to you and ask a little bit about Total
Sure.
Gym. Obviously, as we're talking yesterday, in 23 years of covering this space and then, you know, serving it as the content leader of the PDMI, I don't recall, it feels like I don't recall a week when Total Gym wasn't in the top 10 of long form ad spend. You know, why has the company continued to be a believer in the space? And how are you tweaking your campaigns more recently to continue to drive success here?
Yeah, it's been it is crazy. the IMS reports, I think it's over 2,000 consecutive weeks now or something crazy like that. I think we've all lost count, so it's been a very long time. But the reason it works, right? I mean, Total Gym would not be in the space anymore if it didn't. But it does. So that's the great thing. And as I thought more about this question and thinking about the success of Total Gym, it debuted in 1996 and it's still going today, to your point that it's been around for that long. And the other thing I was thinking about, there's probably people on this call today that weren't even born when Total Gym launched on TV back in 1996. That's how long it's been, which is truly amazing. But there are things, I mean, it was not easy. I mean, there's a lot of things that have to be done today that were done 25 years ago. And I think the big thing is the creative, right? The creative, the tweaking of the creative. Total Gym has always done a really good job of not necessarily overhauling the show on a yearly basis, but adding in new segments, testimonials, just really trying to give it a refresh and a new look. So when someone is channel surfing or someone is seeing that Total Gym name in the guide on their TVs, that they're actually stopping and wanting to watch it and hoping to see they're going to see something different. So refreshing that creative has been extremely vital. And then offer testing has been the other thing that's been huge since day one. American Telecast was always one of the pioneers in trial offers. And it started back in, I think, 1998 is when they first started doing the trial offers, and still use them today. So, just trying to pique that interest, getting people to the website, and then converting them on the website. We still use 800 numbers, so also at the call center. So those two things have been vitally important to the success. And I know you said recent success, but it's been something that has been done consistently throughout, not just recently, that has made Total Gym successful. And then I think the other real big thing is, as we've seen over time, and what has really happened is the transformation from 100% of the orders years and years ago were phone orders to a very small fraction of the orders today. So making sure that relationship between what people are seeing on the linear side of things and that relationship back to the website, and always making tweaks to the website to make sure that it's selling hard. Because most people, as we know today, they're going to do their research, and they're going to go around the web, and then they're going to get back to your site, and you want to make sure that you've got all the content you need there to make that final purchase.
Right. I mean, just got a comment more than a question from the audience about how Dave Marsh was the leader in trial offers. You have obviously what at the end of the day is a high-priced product, but for years, as I retyped the rankings for inclusion in our magazines, it's always $14.95 trial is the price, right?
Right.
And so, how important has that been to what you guys have been able to accomplish?
Yeah, no, I mean, it has been vitally important, but it comes with risks too. I mean, you got to understand the back end side of the business and running that successfully. So I think there was a lot of trial and error early on that had to be perfected, because once you make that first payment, then there's a lot of payments that are coming in, as you go through time. So you got to really be able to balance the business and balance the books at the same time.
Yeah, that's great. So agency folks, Bill, Michelle, I'm gonna go to you first, Bill. The market's changing. What types of clients and brands are you seeing right now in the marketplace? And has there been a shift or a specific category that's grown recently?
Yeah, I mean, again, I think when we look at long form, it really works for a right away of clients that they see the immediate results. And gone are the days where you're putting up, a 1995 product that's all it is, right? I mean, like, to really make it work now, there needs to be a business model behind it that either they're selling a lot of these in retail or there's a continuity piece to it. And when we look at it, it's those higher LTV products that are working, or a higher price item like a Total Gym, where even because it's costing more and more to acquire these customers on the front end. And on our side, we're seeing anywhere from health and wellness to lead gen, to beauty, to insurance, to legal, to brands that are pushing a ton of retail sales. Those are the type of clients that are really working inside long form. And again, especially for linear, it's an older demo where it's not a bad thing, right? I mean, those are people that have the most money right now. So if you can get a product, get a service that goes after that consumer, long form does really well.
Yeah, makes sense. Michelle.
Yeah, I agree with 100% everything that Bill just said. I would say, like, for me, what I'm noticing in terms of maybe what's working better in these days in long form is service driven. So that's healthcare and insurance, intellectual property, and even investment products. And I think, to piggyback on what Bill said, having that sales funnel and more aspects to it is very necessary now versus just the hard products that have just a flat offer. That's very hard to make work.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean
We're used to, yeah.
Yeah. The financials just aren't there to make that work at this point, obviously.
No.
So it's just the way it is. Michelle, I'll start with you. Like looking at the media outlets, where are the best opportunities right now for long form advertisers? Obviously, cable local broadcasts have been the longtime stalwarts. What's working out there? What are people looking at?
I mean, cable being more static, obviously. We're seeing more fluidity in local broadcast and diginets and maybe even satellite. I mean, we're able to go out there and get some unique opportunities in broadcasts that are non-traditional avails and get them to open time that normally sits with programming. So just a lot more in that space. Cable, maybe a little bit more in rate situations, but in terms of accessibility and getting creative with the time, it's definitely more on the local side. And a little bit with the diginets. There's just more out there, and it's easier to make that work.
Mm-hmm. Bill, your
So,
thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I also think it comes down to what is the objective of the brand, right? I mean, there's some clients that want to be inside certain markets only, and for that, then we're going to go into local broadcast. Also, it goes in, what time of year is it? There's sometimes local broadcast becomes really tough to get, and sometimes it's national cable. And then I think, for someone like us, we have a very large CPA network that really does help all of our clients. And you always want to make sure that you find a partner that has something like that.
Makes sense. Mike, I don't want to put you on the spot here, but you worked in 20 years on the agency side. As you were kind of seeing things change before you came back to ATC, do you have any thoughts on shifts in client types versus category growth, or what was working out there? I mean, what's working for you guys as far as the outlets?
Yeah, I mean, I think I could echo pretty much everything that Bill and Michelle said. I think that the biggest thing now is, you're not seeing the tchotchke stuff as much anymore as we used to back in the day. Sort of the one-hit wonders that would come through and generate a ton of sales. You're seeing more established brands that are in the space, on the insurance side and across some of these other categories. So, just as far as what's working, I think it's all about the rate and really it's about the rate. Where are you getting the best deals and then the best response? So I think it can vary. It varies depending on the time of the year, and I think you just need to keep an open mind. And as long as you have an open mind and you're willing to continue to go in and test different channels, whether it's across cable or satellite or local broadcast, you're going to find opportunities that work for you.
Mm-hmm. Makes sense. Bill, I'm gonna go to you with this next one. As linear TV loses viewership to streaming and CTV, what's the likelihood, or is there any, that linear outlets begin adding more long form availability back into their offerings?
Yeah, I think about this a lot because we just hear, how much eyeballs are decreasing. And if that's happening for long form, it's happening for short form too, right? It's happening across the board, and especially in the local broadcast arena, as these stations, continue to face the same headwinds that we all do, they may not be able to afford the same content that they have. So at that, then someone like us can come in, give them free programming, and they can still continue to count on that revenue that we provide them. So I think it's mixed, right? I think in some cases we may lose it, but in the long run, I think there will be a additional surplus of long form media that we can buy.
Great. Michelle, would you like to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, I agree, and I think we're seeing it, and Bill just said that maybe more on the local side, but I think with losing viewers to connected and the need for revenue, everyone's getting more creative with the way they're willing to package, and in cases we are seeing recently the ability to pull from programming and make it be paid avail. So yeah, I mean, I definitely think that, it's a revenue drive and some are more creative than others, but we've extracted a lot more unique opportunities, I think, and that's one of the reasons for it. So
Yeah. Mike, what are you seeing out there?
Yeah, I think networks are more open, as Michelle said, and even local stations as well. I think, it really comes down to, a lot of times you have to make the call, right? It's initiating the contact, and 9 times out of 10, people are going to listen if it's a good opportunity, if it makes sense on their side. And the great thing about opportunities, like creating some of these newer opportunities, is it gets you outside a lot of times of those, traditional paid programming blocks. So the viewership is different, which is always a challenge with long form. And because a lot of the stuff is you're running in blocks. So it's nice to get your client in some different places where, a consumer might not have seen the brand before.
Makes sense. I mean, seems like flexibility on both sides is the key here. There's got to be some room to maneuver both from the buyer side and from the seller side here to make things work properly. Michelle, I'm going to go to you with this next one. We're obviously in the midst of this streaming and CTV expansion. What parts of this are giving you hope for more opportunities for long form media? Is it fast channels? Is it that the fact that ad support outlets are booming? What's out there that's happening that makes you feel good about it, and why?
I mean, for me, the jury's still out, but we have been testing in the fast channel space, even for longer format, 5 minute and half hours. It's very unclear. Like I had mentioned, the loyalty factor in linear television versus streaming is very different. So the idea that we're going to capture them with a half hour or something longer and get them to stay still concerns me. I don't know. So I think we're still trying to figure out in testing of it, because it's such an amazing, unique opportunity. Whether or not it'll work, I don't know, but we're trying to figure out how to monetize it for everybody and the attribution piece of it. So, but I mean, we're doing it with fast channels. So I guess there's some hope there, but I still question if we can make half hour work in streaming. I don't know.
Yeah. Mike, any thoughts here?
Yeah, it kind of takes you back to the old VOD days, right? As they called it, the video on demand. And when we were trying to, a lot of networks, gosh, we're going back 15, 20 years. It's like, oh, we're going to put you on a platform, and anyone's going to be able to view it at any time. And I don't think anybody ever made that successful. So I think to Michelle's point, I think the jury is still really out, and just the way people are consuming video on these platforms, a 2830 is really not a format that seems to me that it's going to really take off. Because it is a younger viewer in these platforms too, that is used to consuming video at much shorter formats. Mm-hmm. So I'm not quite sure. This might be a question for 2026. I don't know.
Bill,
right.
What about you?
Yeah, I mean, I'll add there that there's so many fast channels out there, and I think it's so fragmented. But I do think that so we launched RVTV, which is all about RVs, and I think it's about putting the content where the right eyeballs are, where RVTV is a bit of a older skewing, demo. And I think that's the type of fast channels where you are going to make this work. You can also look at it, and there's so many of them, and it's so fragmented that you're going to have to do this at scale to make it work, because it's a lot of work. And if you're just doing it on a couple and there's not a lot of eyeballs, it's not going to work for us. It's not going to work for our clients. But if you can do it in a mass market, that's when I think it will work. So it's still very new, but I am very bullish that in the long run there will be something here.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because we've heard of not only of Cannella, but other couple of agencies in the industry getting into the fast channel game, and you seeing it as an interesting outlet. I think, and then we've also had different conversations around fast channels where, there's something like 2,000 fast channels now, 1,900, something like that.
Yeah.
A conversation we had last week on our other webinar series, I think the consensus was we might be close to reaching the peak number, but I don't think the idea was the number's not going to fall. There's just going to be like a constant rotation. You're going to have fast channels die, and then new demos are going to come in, new channels are going to come in, and it's kind of kind of rotating. So it's an interesting space, interesting to consider what could be happening next there. Mike, I'm going to go to you with this question. It's about ATC, and actually, Bill and Michelle, think along a little bit here with this question, even though it is a ATC specific question, and think about your client base and what they might be doing in addition to long form as well. And maybe I'll turn to you after this. Mike, you've begun to experiment with other ad formats recently, digital, social, et cetera. Can you share a little bit about what you're doing now and how long form is continuing to fit inside the strategy?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I think, as you think of the year 2024, diversity across all channels is really the key to success. When we think about the long form today, it's still, and we've heard a couple people say it on this call already, it still is the place where we can tell the story. And Total Gym has great stories, through the years about, weight loss and just better overall health. And we tell that through the testimonials. So as far as the strategy goes, the long form is still going to be, to us right now, is really the center of the wheel. And then what we've been able to do is really expand that. And we're running in all formats now in the linear space, and then also in digital and social. The one thing that we still love about the long form is we still use 800 numbers on the long form. So we really can still get that direct attribution to some extent. A lot is still going to the website, but we can find out what's working and what's not. And as we've expanded, and here's the big question, is the attribution, right? The attribution has gotten so much muddier because we're driving everybody to the same, back to the same site. So long form has allowed us to continue to really see that direct attribution where we're not able to see that in some of the other channels because we're not running 800 numbers there on the linear side. But yeah, I mean, if I were getting into the space today, I would say, yeah, long form is great for some. It's not great for all. But if it does fit into your platform, you got to make sure though that you're creating assets across everything in today's world, because at some points, as we talked about earlier, it's going to be much harder. There's going to be much more demand on the long form side. You're going to want to make sure that you have other places that you can go. and you're not pigeonholing yourself into one channel.
Yeah, yeah. Bill or Michelle, thoughts on this? I think, people see long form as kind of like the stodgy old format, but it's obviously working for folks who are doing a lot of new stuff as well. Any thoughts on clients that you guys are serving that are kind of having that success?
Yeah, I mean, we have many clients where we're airing long form, we're in mid form, short form, audio, connected, and in some cases, long form, even though it may be a smaller budget, does maybe overall do best, but you need all of them to really scale now, and you need, the main thing is to be sure that you are seeing all of the data and you are connecting it to make sure that you can really zone in on what actually is driving the overall read results.
Makes sense. Michelle, any thoughts to add there?
Yeah, I mean, I really love what Mike said about the cleanliness of the 800 number with that, and that still has a lot of power in terms of really seeing what you have in attribution. But with my clients, and I still have many very old school long form clients, and even some shopping clients that's what works for them. They need that longer format, but we are discussing and I'm really pushing them to do different lengths and different formats because they have to. Everything needs to support the long form, although still very, very strong and very clean. So yeah, I mean, I'm encouraging traditionally, they don't think that short form will work for them, but we need to find a way to make it support their long form efforts.
Right. Great stuff, guys. All right, we're going to the final two questions, kind of big picture questions. Bill, I'll start with you. Use your crystal ball. What conversations will we be having about the effectiveness of long form in 2026?
Yeah, when I look at just thinking about where we are today from where we were a year ago, I mean, you just think of like OpenAI, right? Like, I think we can all say like it's mind-boggling on what those tools are doing for us now and what we're getting out of it, right? I mean, I know that our partners and us, like we're using it for like creatives, and I can only imagine where it's going to be in a year from today or in 2 years from now, where there may be things where because of AI, because of the advancements in data, there may be 10 different long forms for the same client that are going after a different consumer, as well as some of these platforms and the way that we engage and watch video today may change, but at the end of the day, it's still longer form content where some of the content may not be a 2830, but it may be shorter, but it still came from a long form. And those true and tried principles of DTC marketing are still going to be there. So when I look at it, I think it will continue to be fragmented, but we're seeing that across the board. There's a reason why there's marketers continuing to run long form because it works, and I think they will continue to do it.
Great. And Michelle, how about you?
Agreed. Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing, maybe this will be the discussion in 2 years where there's even 2 minutes in the streaming world is longer. So that there's more opportunity created there. And I think that there will be. And I think we're also going to have a lot more data under our belt with our long form clients because it has become more accessible and easy to lower cost of entry to get into. So we're going to be able to utilize a lot of the data that we can get, which is amazing in streaming, with you targeting your demographics and that, and bringing that back into the long form conversation.
Great, Michelle. Thank you, Mike.
Yeah, I think the one thing that you're going to see 2 years from now is, I don't think you're going to see as much traditional long form. And I think Bill and Michelle both touched on that, just in the look and feel of things too, with the way people are consuming video now and the length of time. When you talk about a social platform in a 30-second, it's like 30 seconds. That's an eternity, right? So when you think about the long form, I think from a creative aspect, you're going to see people putting it together differently, making sure that you're using the best content and probably using it over and over again, because the days of people sitting down, grabbing a cup of coffee and watching a 28:30, those days are over. No one's doing that anymore. So, making sure that, you're getting the best content in there as much as you possibly can, I think is going to be key. And I think you're going to start to see that a lot more as we move forward here with creative agencies and just the way things are being put together. But overall effectiveness, I think that in 2 years, we're still going to be sitting here saying that long form is a place that works for some. It doesn't work for all, but can be very effective. And it still is the best place to tell a story.
Makes sense. All right. And not to fear, we have plenty of great audience questions to follow this, but my last question for you guys, if each of you could leave our viewers here today with one key thought about long form direct response and where we're headed, what is it? Michelle.
Wow. Well, I think analysts probably started to depict the demise of long form when Netflix maybe announced they were coming on the scene. So that's like 2007. So we're like 17 years and here we are, right? So and the share of linear TV viewers is still higher than I think most people think. We're still over 50%. And I think I'm seeing like a little bit of maybe a lean back because there's subscriber fatigue going on and people kind of want easier. So I think we might be dealing with a little bit of lean back. So overall, I mean, it's still strong. The fragmentation has created some opportunity for us. And I mean, even news, live events, and sports, unparalleled audiences in linear television. And if that stays strong, long form stays strong.
Great. Thanks, Michelle. Bill.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say that long form is not dead. It is just evolving, and it will continue to evolve. And it doesn't matter what screen it's on, but long form content still drives response. And for the right marketer, it's very, very powerful. And there's a few of us that really know it. So I would say that whoever wants to get into it, make sure that you align yourself with the right content producers, the right media agency, because it's not a game that everyone plays it, and it's not for everyone. But again, it is very powerful. It tells a story, and it can really push positive results.
Right. Last word, Mike.
Yeah, so something I said for a long time about long form is it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. And the reason I say that is when you think about the length, being 28 minutes and 30 seconds, there's a lot of test, learn, repeat, test, learn, repeat. So it's very rare. It was rare 20 years ago to put a new long form show out and it worked just like that. It's harder to make it work today, but if it's done right, you have to stick with it, I guess is what I'm trying to say with the sprint marathon reference, in that you have to be patient, you have to give it time, you work with the right partner, they create the right test for you, and then the offer testing, there's all types of different things that you're going to have to do. So if there's one thing I could tell everybody is, if you want to get in the space, you got to be patient.
Makes sense.
Well said.
Well said, guys. All right, let's go to the audience. We've got some really great stuff out there. The first one is for Mike specifically. How has TollGym been able to successfully make the transition from 100% phone response to mostly web?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I think it goes back to it goes back to the attribution piece, and you really need to understand the attribution. I mean, 100% phone is very easy, right? You know, you can see it, you get a report every day. You know that with that 800 number, you can point it directly back to whatever network you're running on. So, you know, the challenge is obviously you've got to find that right attribution solution and understanding how it fits into all the channels that you're running. So there are some, you know, there are some companies out there that can help with that, but I think Total Gym had a bit of an advantage because it's been around for so long, in that, you know, we could tell gradually over time and make some assumptions year after year about how much we thought was coming in from the web, you know, that was being transitioned from the phone. So in today's world, it's definitely a lot harder because there's just so many channels out there, and especially if you're driving into one spot. You know, we tried landing pages, you know, things like that, unique URLs, but man, it's tough to get much out of those. And most people are still going to your, you know, to your direct site for, to purchase the product.
Yeah. I'm actually going to use this as a jumping off point for another question that came in a little bit later, but since we're talking about, you know, CTA and response and all that stuff, and so for everybody, you know, we've heard a lot about QR codes being successful for short form campaigns. Are you guys seeing any success using QRs in long form at all?
Yeah, we are. I mean, we use it for a number of different shows, and yeah, it's just another way for us to have one-to-one attributed data, and then also then we can also you know, get in contact with those consumers at a later date.
Yeah. Anyone else with anything on that? All good. All right. Audience question number 2 that came in, asking about seeing success in taking a short form product and turning it into long form. You know, what's the success rate you've seen? Are there certain attributes in a short form campaign that translate well to the long form market? I think this is a question that's kind of flipping the normal question on its head, where you take something from long form.
I know, right?
Yeah.
I have a client with some financial products that are actually working on that right now. I mean, success, I don't know yet, but they've predominantly short form, and they've got to run in news. They're working on some long form offers that sort of make sense for a couple of the products. So we'll see on that, but
Yeah, and you know, we are speaking to some larger supplement brands that are doing shorter form now and kind of going after a younger demo, and we're in talks with them to do a long form because we think that you know, it's going to tell a story as well as it's going to hit a different demo than what they currently have.
Mm-hmm. Great. Another question from the audience: as we see election and Olympics on the horizon, can the panel share their thoughts on how to navigate successful long form campaigns during the back half of this year?
Yeah, I mean, when you look at the local side, it's going to get really crowded, as well as with national cable. You know, as there's less media available, then the rates will go up. So I would just say for all of the companies out there that need to hit overall budgets, just make sure that they understand that as the media becomes tighter, the rates will go up, and then results will probably creep up some.
yeah, agreed. I think that's where, you know, the local, we're definitely seeing way more movement there in a year like this, and tightness, and obviously that creates more demand, so rates will go up. I mean, for the Olympics, I mean, NBC will be affected obviously a lot. So some moving inventory and definitely less availability.
Yeah, I think that goes back to some stuff we talked about earlier, Tom, and just that diversity is key. And especially you have the Olympics this year, you have, and not just all specific to long form, to long form, but to all channels. You have the Olympics, and then right after that you have the election, the general election. So there's a lot going on this year that's going to impact availability across a lot of channels. So just making sure that you have a full suite, where if you're going to get knocked out of somewhere, you have somewhere else to go, is going to be really important this year.
Yeah, and I think the election affects, obviously affects short form more than long form,
Yeah.
but it still does have an impact. And so to Mike's point, making sure you're very well rounded and you have areas to make up for it.
Yeah, and I'll add that in some cases, when you look at something like the Summer Olympics coming on board, there will be more eyeballs on TV in general. So it's not always a bad thing, because you do get people that are flipping through again and may see that guide and, hopefully stop and watch.
Makes sense. I got time for a few more here, and the great news is they keep coming. Again, this is for the group, so whoever wants to jump in. Do you think infomercials will move to a more infotainment type format in the future?
I think they could.
I do not. I
Go
think
ahead.
Go ahead, Michelle.
No. Well, I was just going to say that I, with regard to some of these networks being more creative and opening up programming, it can be product and brand specific, or the way the show looks. And then there's these, destination shows that are coming out that are really, they're buying infomercial time. So in terms of getting some of these networks to clear some of this time, they're wanting something that looks maybe a little bit more like programming, or a higher end brand looking, higher end production. So I think it could go in that direction.
Yeah, I think that, we've seen some people in the past try and make it more entertainment, and I think when they do that, it doesn't sell as hard, and then the results just aren't there. So I think for the tried and true long form, I don't see it, but I do agree that I think as networks continue to look how they can, increase overall revenue, there may be ways where they can incorporate some longer format ads within programming that maybe they are doing a co-op for.
Yeah.
But I think for the tried and true, I don't see that happening.
I agree. I mean, that sterilizes it, and they're not going to work as well. I mean, that style doesn't tend to convert and work that well. It never has, but.
Great. This one is for Mike.
Okay.
How does ATC lean into Chuck and Christy moving forward, or do you?
That's a great
Everyone who's
question.
paying attention, Chuck Norris and Christy Brinkley, the longtime spokesman.
Yeah, that's a great question. I guess you'll have to watch and find out, I guess, is my answer to that one.
Good answer. Throwing it out there. This is for everyone. This is an interesting question. Do you see brands, not that the other ones weren't interesting, I just was intrigued immediately by this. Do you see brands using their social campaigns to drive to a longer format ad rather than directly to a website to shop? Seeing any of that out there?
Ooh. Bill, I don't know.
I do not think
can't
so.
say that
I
I have.
mean, again, I think if I'm hearing it correctly, if you're airing a longer format and then you're driving to another ad, you don't want to do that, because you want you want that consumer to go to the website and order the product. You don't want to give them a chance to even think about anything else. You just want them, I saw it, I was sold on it, I want to buy it. We don't want to show them more stuff. Now, if it's a shorter ad that gets them into a funnel, like you're seeing this a lot on something like YouTube, where it hooks you and then it sells you through a funnel, that will be more and more, but not for a longer format to a video.
I'm wondering if I skipped a word when I read that. Do you see brands using social campaigns to drive to a longer format?
I was just going to ask you, so like if they're using Instagram, they're asking if we're seeing them drive directly to website or to a longer format
Yeah,
ad.
seeing them like take an Instagram ad or a TikTok and go directly to more advertising rather than to buying.
I have not seen that on a longer format side. The drive to. That's interesting, though. That's a good question.
All right. Yeah, I think we're set. We're running out of time. We're at 2:57 my time. So want to say thank you to everybody. Thank you to the audience for such great questions. Thank you to all three of our panelists, to Mike, Bill, and to Michelle, especially Michelle, for battling through those tech issues to make sure you were here.
I'm so sorry.
We appreciate it.
But I made it. Thank you.
It's not your fault, and we're glad that we were able to get you here. For those of you who attended today, tell a friend. This, as long as the fingers crossed, the recording works. We had our first recording snafu with our last episode, Take 20. As long as the recording works, we should have this on YouTube by Thursday or Friday for you, your coworkers to review as well. So, thank you also to the Workshop Council for bringing us the event today. We're always thankful for our councils and all their efforts to bring great content to you. Your next opportunity to attend a PDMI event live online is next Wednesday, May 1st at 2 o'clock Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific. When the Brand Response Council airs its latest episode of Take 20, we'll look at the latest in payment processing for performance marketers. To register, please visit thepdmi.com/take-20. And online registration is now open for PDMI West, October 7th through 9th at Hard Rock Hotel San Diego. Our early bird special pricing on badges for performance marketers must attend event of the fall are just $295 for PDMI members and $495 for non-members through June 14th. Specially priced hotel room block for the show will be available soon for badge holders only. So to get in the front of the line, you visit thepdmi.com/PDMI-West to get your badge and get in line. Thank you again, everyone, today for joining us. Be well. We'll see you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.